Taas mennään DigiArena Helsinki. Messukeskus tällä kertaa. Tämä on kiva rehearsal huomiseen. Huomenna on myyntikapina. 2500 ihmistä tuolla Metro-areenalla, mutta ei puhuta siitä. Katsotaan vähän, että millainen digiläbämeininki meillä on olemassa tuolla. Mulla ei yhtään mitään tietoa tuosta tapahtumasta, muuta kuin se, mitä mä oon siitä lukenut. Mä en ole kerinyt, mä olin eilen HubSpotin tapahtumassa Dublinista. Mä tulin suoraan sieltä asiakaspalveliin tänään kello 8. Pölähdin tällaista on tää reissurope-elämä. Niin ne, jotka tekee, niin tietää. Asiakaspalveria ja tänään sitten sisäisiä palvereita ja kello on nyt 14.37 ja nyt mennään sinne. Salmari Mohonen haastattelee, meillä on paneelikeskustelu ja puhutaan varmaan digimarkkinoinnista, kun ollaan DigiArenassa. Joo, 2 päivää mä olin HubSpotin partnerpäivässä. Se on muuten niin, että Sales Communications is the most decorated HubSpot partner in Europe. Eli me ollaan saatu eniten palkintoja. Decorate, koristeltu. Vähän niin kuin palkinnot on niin kuin joulukuusia. Se oli hauska huomio, joku heitti sieltä. Katsotaan, millainen tuossa DigiArenasta tulee. En mä HubSpotista hirveästi meinaa puhua. Sitä ehkä yleisesti ottaen mennään se haastattelija kysymysten mukaisesti. Perjantaina on myös viikon päästä GDPR tulee 25.5. Eli tietosuoja-asetus Euroopan laajuinen istuu kaikille voimaan. Musta se on hyvä juttu. GDPR on niinku jees. Ja ehkä siitäkin pitää vähän tänään puhua tuossa digimarkkinoinnissa ja näin päin. Tänä päivänä älä markkinoi, jos ei ihminen odota saavansa sulta markkinointiviestintää. Älä tallenna ketään sun tietokantaa ilman lupaa, pyydä lupa, kysy, oo transparentti, eli läpinäkyvä, rakenna luottamusta. Kato se viimeinen asia, sä voit saada huomiota kaiken näköisillä asioilla, ihan mitä tahansa. Se viimeinen asia ennen kun kauppa syntyy missä tahansa tilanteessa on luottamus. Ihmiset aina kysyy sen tilanteen jollain tietyllä tavalla. On se, että voinko mä luottaa suhun? Teetkö sinä sen, mitä sanot? Ja myyntimiehillä on semmoinen ongelma, että kukaan ei jaksa kuunnella mitään myyntiräppejä, pitsejä, tämän tyyppisiä asioita, vaan ne haluaa tietää sen kysymyksen, että teetkö sinä sen, mitä sinä lupaat? Joo, siitä varmaan puhutaan. Google-roolista varmaan puhutaan. Facebook, huge. Mielenkiintoinen systeemi. Katsotaan, puhutaanko suomalaisesta mediasta. Mä oon isänmaallinen mies. Ja mä tykkäisin, jos suomalainen media menestyisi mahdollisimman hyvin, mutta sillä on vähän vaikeuksia nyt, kun katseet on siirtynyt interwebbiin, internettiin. Yli 90% kaikista suomalaisista työssäkäyvistä on joka päivä internetistä jollain tietyllä tasolla. Se on iso luku. Siitä huomioista Google, Facebook ja valtaosa. Facebookin ekosysteemi, Instagram, WhatsApp ja Facebook. Tää mun mielestä on niinku silleen mielenkiintoista. Ne haalii myös maailman mainosrahasta valtaosan. Ja tää trendi on myös Suomessa. Toivottavasti puhutaan siitä. Ja näin. Markkinoinnin mittaamisesta olisi kiva puhua. Eikä vaan markkinoinnin mittaamista, vaan koko funnelin mittaamisesta. Siitä, että mistä sun huomio tulee, paljonko se maksaa, paljon sun liidit maksaa, paljon sun diilit maksaa, mikä on niin kuin asiakashankintakustannus, mikä on customer lifetime value. Näistä asioista olisi mielenkiintoinen herättää keskustelua. Ja sitten siitä, että kuinka tyytyväisyys sun asiakkaat on, mikä on sun NPS. On kaikki me halutaan asiakkaita, mutta kyllä se vaan se kasvu syntyy siitä, että sun perälauta ei vuoda. No, sellaisia viestejä mulla on sulle ja DigiArenan. Sä luultavasti katsot tätä, niin voi olla, että oot paikalla, mutta luultavasti et, koska katsot tätä sen jälkeen, kun tää tilaisuus on ollut. Mut tsemppi, katsotaan mitä saadaan aikaiseksi. Toivottavasti tulisi hyvää keskustelua ja pöhinää ja mä tykkäisin hyvistä mielipiteistä ja tällaisesta, että näin ja noin tehdään semmoisesta tekemisestä. Suomi vähän velloo, 49% yrityksistä ei halua kasvaa. Think about that. Tää maailma menee lakkoon tässä maassa, kun joku ehdottaa valtion taholta 8 minuutin työajan lisäystä. Tiedätkö mikä on kasvun vastakohta? Se on pienentyminen. Se on pienentyminen. Sen sijaan, että sä laajennat ja sä pienennät. 49% suomalaisista haluaa tehdä pientä. itse asiassa en mä tiedä, että onko ne ajatellut mitään, mutta tää on tämmönen provokatiivinen systeemi, koska esimerkiksi myyntimiehissä on tämmönen juttu, että kun niitä palkataan, niin yksi semmonen keskeinen ominaisuus on työetiikka. Mikä on sun suhde työhön? Ja nyt mä en tarkoita sitä, että työaika olisi jotenkin merkittävä, mutta se sun suhde, millä intohimolla sä paneudut siihen asiakaspalveluun, sen asiakkaan elämän hyväksi tekemiseen. Se ratkaisee sun menestys. Trust. Peukku. Nähdään.
Tästä tulee varmasti draivikas keskustelu, sen verran railakkaita ammattilaisia ovat ainakin tuntemani suomalaiset puhujat tässä paneelissa. Meillä on nyt 3 varttia aikaa mun All Mail-paneelin kanssa, koska Laura Pääkkönen joutuu perumaan. Sen takia meillä on nyt 3 railakasta miestä ja asiantuntijaa tässä. Mikä meitä myynnin ja markkinoinnin huomisessa oikein odottaa? Miten teknologia, miten kommunikaatiokulttuurin muutos ja vähän ne henkilöstöasiatkin, joista puhuttiin jo tässä salissa aikaisemmin, vaikuttavat tekemisiin? Toivotetaanpa lämpimästi tervetulleeksi tähän lavalle mun panelistit Jarkko Kurvinen, Jani Aaltonen ja Sean Pillot de Cheneceyn. Meniköhän se nyt oikein? Sean with the long name, as you said. Tervetuloa.
Morjesta.
He just wanted the grand entrance. No, not really. I really appreciate you guys making a full day with us. So now we have here guys who are definitely experts on B2B, B2C, inbound marketing. At least 2 published writers, both Sean and Jarkko has done several ones. I have done one. Jani, where's your book?
Well, actually, my book is not my book. It's Mika Rubanovic's book called Myyntikapina, and I've written 1 chapter there.
Okay.
I'm like more concentrating on doing videos than writing because I'm actually a really lousy writer.
Okay, but you're an excellent speaker. I remember that from our mutual studies way back then. Hey, let's get the story started. The future customer. The future customer experience, how to make the most out of the technology and the knowledge that we have of the changing ways of marketing to modern customers. And let's B2B, B2C, either way. Jani, you can start.
What is the question? What does the future customer look like?
Yeah.
Or what is it? Well, I think this is my personal opinion, is that we don't trust media anymore. We don't trust people. We don't trust companies who are publishing stuff on the internet and telling how great they are. What we actually do trust is our friends, the people we are interacting, actually know. So I think that's something to think about in the future. Is how can you be more trustful? For the next Friday is going to be the GDPR day, and I think that it's really, really good for marketers because companies who actually are transparent can actually win in the future, who can actually invest money more on the customer's journey's delight phase, the phase that you actually are a customer, and try to leverage the word of mouth concept are the future winners, and that's not a platform thing. I think that's a kind of a mental issue, because at the end of the day, before we purchase anything, the last questions before we sign for a deal is, can I trust you? Do you actually deliver what you say, at least in the B2B environment, and certainly in the B2C environment, because their monies are on their own and not the company's money. But I think that the trust issue is that we are looking more companies who earns our trust, and the companies who are looking for short gains tend to lose in the market.
How do you see this, Sean, from an international point of view? Your upcoming book is called The Post-Truth Business, so it seems that you are tackling the same field here, are you?
Yeah, very much so. I think what is really fascinating here is that word of mouth has always been by far the most trusted medium and the most trusted source of information. If you talk to social psychologists about how trust works in society, what is really fascinating and how this impacts, I think, the future consumer, and how this has impacted society over the last few years is that essentially, if you look at society and the history of trust, should we say, when we all lived in villages, trust was something that that was basically formed and moved between small groups of people who literally were in the next hut or the next cave almost. As society developed, trust became more of a vertical thing in terms of once institutions were built, once we set up legal systems and police forces and all the rest of it, and governments, etc., trust became a vertical issue. What digitization has done, and in many ways, I think, again, it's been said today, and I totally agree with this, that digital now is almost an irrelevant term because everything is digital. So whereas 5 years ago there were big, now it's just everywhere. I think what it's done in particular with regards to trust is it's flattened out that whole issue. So now when you talk to, again, social psychologists, they'll talk about trust is now horizontal. All things digital have enabled us to trust strangers. It's how 20 years ago, if you'd suggested going to stay in a stranger's home and sleeping in the bedroom next to them, or had suggested that your teenage daughter would do that on her travels, everyone else would have thought you were insane. Now, digital has enabled us to trust strangers. And I think one other really key area where this has been shown is, for instance, in the world of, and just to take one of many examples, the world of transport. In parts of, let's say, South America, to get into a taxi is often a dangerous thing, particularly for a woman. Late at night, you wouldn't dream of getting into a taxi, let us say, in parts of Mexico, for instance. You would, however, do so if you'd ordered an Uber, because Uber will give you the name of the driver will be ranked, you'll know who they are, they will know that you know who they are, therefore they can be tracked. And so therefore, that's enabled that driver, who's already no doubt a totally trustworthy person, to prove themselves to you, the stranger, that they're worth relying on. So that is where digital has totally reinforced trust and has transformed it.
I'm glad that you put this sort of a positive angle to it. Jarkko, what do you have to add on this issue of trust?
Well, I think that trust is, as you both guys said, I don't have anything to add to trust part, but fun story. 20 years ago, we were never supposed to trust anyone from the internet, and 20 years, as of now, we trust everyone. We have all these well-being experts and so on and so on. We are trusting everyone, and as Trump says, fake news, fake news, fake news. So as Jani was mentioning, that we don't trust media anymore, and so trust is kind of interesting stuff. And if we come to think of it, it has never been so cheap to produce trust at the moment, but it's also never has been so competitive environment for that. But what I should add for the future customer is that when we have trust issues taken care of, we also have ever-demanding customers. Actually, the customers want everything to be done exactly now, transparently, and so on. So this also calls for professional excellence for companies. They have to deliver right away, every time, every way, every channel, omni-channel, and so on. So it makes hard for companies to adapt that you have to be ready for everything, and you have to also be excellent in marketing, because making promises and delivering them and keeping the promises and, of course, over-delivering to get the customer experience right. But in a short way, that I would add.
I think Jarkko is very, very, very right on this. We have been experimenting bots and the AI, kind of a small little AI stuff. And, you go to a website and there's this chat, which is open till 9, till 5, and there's a human being. But in our numbers show that over 50% of the conversations that people want to do is not Monday to Friday, at 9 o'clock till 5 o'clock. People are having conversation with the B2B companies. This is not a B2C or B2B thing. This is the way how do we interact with all the devices, is that we want to interact with the companies when we want to do it. And I think that the big issue with the companies is that we can choose, because nobody is forcing us. We can choose whether we are serving the customer or not. And this is a free world and a free choice. And I think that the companies who actually try to make these interactions more human and more in context for the customers' wants and needs, whys and hows, and all that will win at the future, because we tend to have a conversation with the companies more or less on those digital channels. The problem is that the companies doesn't see that way. They see it that way, that we just have this fantastic service or fantastic product. Let's push it out to the channels. And I think that that's I'm not saying that's wrong. I'm just saying that the ROI, the ROI is not efficient. Definitely on that.
When we talk about the future in marketing, in sales, it's easy that there are a lot of fantastic buzzwords that mostly are attached to technology. You mentioned already artificial intelligence. How do you guys see, what would you invest in as a marketer? Or which are the horses that you would bet in? Focusing on artificial intelligence and applying that, or specific technologies, or what are the sure shots, on your opinion? Sure.
Well, for me, certainly, I mean, I think there are only really two big buzzwords around at the moment, and that's AI and blockchain. Yeah. And you'll have that conversation wherever you are in Asia or Scandinavia or the US or Middle East or whatever. However, having said that, and again, I think a few speakers spoke about this today, there is this obsession with the shiny in the new, and yet I think two of the biggest issues that certainly I'm sure we all hear, and the audience hears as well continually, that most brands are utterly misreading, are new families and new households. So there's a complete misunderstanding of what the modern household is. You know, the idea of now what makes a home is a very, very different thing to what made a home 20 years ago. What makes a family unit is very, very different, when it used to be a very, very 1950s model of, you know, what a family was. And the other thing, obviously, over the last couple of years has been, at last, the extraordinary issue of strong, independent women coming through. You know, this is on one side everything from the Me Too movement that has come through at last, and the other side is this issue of companies finally realizing that they should be treating women with respect and as equals.
Yeah, can you imagine, sisters?
Exactly. I think it's extraordinary how it's still bizarre how most marketing gets it so wrong, considering who is the actual consumer, who is making the purchasing decisions, where does the actual money lie, even just on that very basic business issue of who is the actual consumer. In most cases, it is a woman, and yet most companies are still, their tone of voice, their portrayal of women is staggeringly insulting. You know, the fashion industry and the beauty industries are the two worst for this. The way they portray women is so shocking, so immoral, it almost defies belief. You know, and I've lectured at fashion colleges for many years, and it's just incredible how badly that they get it wrong. So I think, so it's one side, yes, blockchain, AI, very rightly people are looking at this and are obsessed with it, and increasingly AR from the point of view of things like fake news. But the other side, it's just realism. It's amazing how few brands realize what is plainly in front of them.
Okay. This guy actually needs a little clapping with this. This was huge. Yeah.
Okay, Jarkko, Jani, can you do better?
Yeah, well, I don't know whether better, but I can give different point of view, because I should say that we should forget any technology, because you have to remember that when we are communicating with our customers, it's all about great purpose we have. It's about the differentiating value we can provide. It's the story we are telling our customers, and it's the story that our customers want to tell to other customers. So in a sense, because we have all this nice technology, we have automation, we have artificial intelligence and machine learning and such, they are great tools, but they should never be the ones that are controlling the company. It should be the great purpose and the story of the customers that want to be telling it forward. So technology is a very nice servant, but it shouldn't be the host.
Right. Jani, what do you see?
It's very hard to put that.
You think that the future is back to basics, as the two other members
more or less. I think that the future is back to basics, and future is more human. The one thing I would invest if I was the CEO of some corporation, big one, is humans, and trying to train the humans, work in this environment, and be more human, and kind of try to get them understand the whole funnel, the whole process, for a long term. But the problem is that we are not in our jobs for the long term. We are short term, and everybody in the companies are short term. So that's what I would do. And where would I put my money? I would put, of course, to the people, but I would put it on Facebook. And because the Facebook's ability to get attention is huge, get leads, get deals, all that is working very, very well on price, which is now very, very good. You can get B2B leads for 2 euros per lead, good ones, with the channel of Facebook, where in Google you invest 150 euros. So Facebook now is a very good deal, and I think that the Facebook stock is very, very underpriced compared to Google. If you go and see how much Google is worth, it's over 1,000 euros per piece, and Facebook is 180 euros. And Facebook's ownership of the traffic of the whole world, WhatsApp, Instagram, Facebook, all that ecosystem is huge. And I think that a lot of customers, a lot of companies think that we are not going there because our customers are not there. Or you hear this kind of stories and whatever.
Our customers are not humans.
Our customers are not humans, or our competition is not there. But, you know, stupidest thing that you can do as a marketer, go there where everybody else is and buy the advertising on a price which is this high in this ecosystem. And we many times wait that the neighbor next door is doing the thing, and then we are doing the same thing, and I think that that's a very, very, very lousy strategy, is to be the copycat. And I think Facebook now is a very, very good deal. That's where I put my money. So Facebook, humans, and processes training, those 4 things.
Mind his words. I'm glad that there are more of these sort of practical tips, dropping names and showing ways to do it, like we have had today in several of these sessions in other halls. You guys mentioned also the human part. It has become on the human resources part, on the need to retrain or even recruit some people in order to facilitate the change. How do you guys see, what kind of a training will all this that we have ahead of us in the future, trying to do business well, what kind of a training do we need for our staff? Or is it like our Swedish colleague said earlier on this stage, that you more or less have to hire new ones? Is it that drastic, or is it specific training, technology-wise or thinking-wise, that is necessary? Jarkko, this is definitely yours. Jarkko, this is definitely your turf.
Yeah, because my next book is about creating winning corporate culture. So it's all about culture, how you treat people and so on. So because companies should understand that the employees are the number one customer of the company. And if you don't treat your employees right, they won't treat your customers right. So it's an everlasting debate over that. But I should say this would be the end of it, because as many opinions here have been heard that humans are the most important resource you can have on your business. And when we are talking about creating a great customer experience, how can you give exceptional service if your employees can't make any exceptions? So, in a sense, you should go customer-centric, human-first thinking. We have this technology, mobile-first thinking, so we should have also human-first thinking in our companies. But I say it's all about culture, because having great customer experience means that you have great employee experience.
Okay, cool. How do you see this? What is the necessity of training or re-recruiting?
Yes, I certainly agree with that, and I think, again, human resources until quite recently was a really, really boring subject. It was a completely uninteresting world, and certainly one that wasn't spoken about with any sense of awe or passion or whatever, or certainly innovation. And yet now the way that companies treat the staff, the way that the staff are then talking about the companies where they work or where they choose to work is becoming an ever bigger deal. The point you're making about CEOs, this is a huge leadership issue. CEOs need to be ensuring that that what they're talking about isn't a marketing-led, easy, nice-sounding purpose type thing. Everyone got very obsessed over the last few years with brand stories and purpose and all those Simon Sinek why type diagrams, and they forgot about the how and the what. And I think now this issue about everyone realizing that the how and the what is as important as the why is a really, really big deal, because there's a lot of glossing over stuff going on, I think, for quite a few years, a lot of greenwashing, a lot of whitewashing, and now that has really moved on. So I think, consumers, people, individuals are ever more interested in what's behind the screen, what's behind the veneer of the company, what's it actually like to work there. Where do they source their stuff? How do they produce what they make? What's the impact on the planet? It's a far, far bigger deal.
But isn't that quite a lot of making a virtue out of necessity, as it's not only the millennials entering the work market, but it's also the baby boomers being out. So actually there's a shortage in the Western world and Japan of skilled workers. So it really matters, the culture and how you treat your people. It's not just that, hey, we're entering a stage of soft and fluffy stuff. It's actually harder than hell, knowing that we will be competing a lot with the people that are in the working age. Jani and Jarkko are eagerly adding. And you don't have to wait for my turn.
Let me answer this. Let me answer this very Finnish thing.
Kind of a discussion.
Let me add to this very Finnish thing, really Finnish thing. And I find this really fascinating. 49% of the companies do not want to grow in this country. It's 49% of the companies of this country do not want to grow. So what is the opposite of growth? Is getting smaller. So you either grow or either go smaller. And that was a study made by ECO and Finland Entrepreneurial Society, and this I find really fascinating. So we are not 50%, 49%, almost 50%, are not want to grow. And that's a huge management mindset issue. And also, this country go on strike if somebody says you have to work 8 minutes more. So we are not investing in the opportunities, and we are not going for, this country is not proactively looking for being better and growing better and being better. We're actually looking for going smaller. And it's kind of an internal shift, and what we need to be doing, I think Jarkko was right with the culture thing. Our management and we as a companies need to understand as humans that in order to keep this level of welfare and all that, we need to open up, and we need to grow better as a humans, better as a companies, better as customers and all that. So I think that's kind of the mindset issue. And this is something that we need to be talking more. We need to talk about this issue of how do we be better, and how do we have this kind of ethical code and a mindset that everybody in the companies are safe, and that's a management issue. If you lead by and I think women are really good in keeping people safe, because that's kind of in female DNA.
and the guys are more like an ice hockey players, and a really short-term management. So I think that the more
hockey and soccer too, and in Finland actually very well.
Yeah. But I think that because you can't grow when you're afraid, and when you're afraid, you're always looking for the place where you can be safe. And all the great management systems are built on the system that you come to this company. It's all right to fail. It's either a great success or then you learn something. But please do try and go for the new things, because those are the things that actually makes us forward and not backwards. So I think that's a huge issue.
But I think Jarkko Kurvinen, with the I'm really looking forward to your next book on company culture, is hitting to the soft spot. I'm not sure if Sean, you're aware that the national economy in Finland since 2008 has been in a slump. So it means that for 10 years we have had, the survival mode, trying to save energy, trying to just, be just about above the level of the water. So we have a generation of decision makers, we have a generation of middle management, if not CEOs and board members, that haven't really lived through the times of growth and well-being. So how to change that? Do we have to change not the staff, but actually the middle management and the CEOs and the board members? How are we going to change the company culture? I think Jarkko is going to hit the soft spot, but we would love to hear from Sean, coming out of Finland, which has been rarely stuck in this sort of a survival mode for over 10 years.
But I think if you look at interesting, forward-looking, dynamic cities, which very often tend to be secondary cities. If you look back at people, let's say, like Richard Florida, who wrote Rise of the Creative Class and Flight of the Creative Class, and I gave a speech with Richard many years ago in Melbourne when we went down there, talking about where this is all going. And I'm sure you cover this in your book, which I'll read with interest. If you look at the studies about the future of work, as you've just been saying, all about flexibility, all about lifelong learning, continual relearning, getting away from this idea that is still prevalent in most Western markets, which is work is something you do from 9 to 5, Monday to Friday, in a fixed building, at a fixed location in that building, and you do that for a certain amount of time, and then you go home and work stops. As we've just heard through Warren's excellent talk just now, this issue of the ability to work anywhere, anytime, in an incredibly flexible way is throwing all of that up in the air. So if you're looking at dynamic cities, places like Lisbon or Barcelona or Berlin or San Francisco or Austin, Texas or Shenzhen in China or Osaka in Japan, then what you're tending to see is a completely different way of working, which is also not ageist and not sexist. Again, we're still faced with the issue that in most markets, past a certain age, certainly in the service sector, the age of the company drops markedly, so there's no real experience in there, although we know that older people tend to have more resilience than young people. Young people like having older people around, but what companies haven't done is help those people to relearn and relearn, which is what needs to happen. So I think it's very, very dynamic, and yet markets that are doing badly tend to be very flat markets that aren't keeping up with the dynamism that's out there.
That's a very good point of diversity age-wise within companies too. Jarkko, do you have, can you give us a sort of a sneak peek into what your book is about on company culture on this issue?
Yeah, sure. For one thing, I like the term relearn because it's everything because when we are talking about corporate culture, it's all about leadership. The culture grows stronger when the leaders that created it leave from the system. So if you think about terms of religion, there all high stars have left the scene, but the culture has even grown stronger. And I think we have a lack of leadership in Finland in this sense, because many of the leaders do not instruct or tell or try to even communicate what's the most important stuff to be done in the company. And when there's no purpose behind the company, when there's no understanding what's the most important things to do, what are the measurements of the doing, people don't know whether their workday has succeeded or not.
Yeah, they're stuck with the old routines.
Yeah, because, and if you don't know whether you have succeeded or not, because if your only metric for succeeding in day is that did you smile or not, it's no way to go. But if you have some leader that tells you the story, hey, we are going to go for that mountain, it means doing this and this and this. It may be hard, but it's worth it. And we are measuring our progress by this, and we are celebrating all the achievements with these and these steps. And this is how we roll, and this is what we believe in, and this is how we go forward. And while we are doing that, it's all about people, how people treat each other, how they are accountable for each other, and how's the team spirit building? Are they making up for each other weaknesses or not, or is it some other culture? But I think playing a culture in company, it's nothing new, but it's just way of thinking that moves your company to a new level.
Yeah. I'm really sorry, guys. I get a feeling that your CEOs and your board members of the organization that you're working in should be in here. I hope you get something to be brought here, or have them come over next time, because, you know, the problem in Finland at least seems to be, or the key issue seems to be not which technology or app to download, but to how to change the company culture and leadership.
Hey, actually, I could ask an audience question.
Yeah.
How many of you know how your success in your work is measured? Who knows the metrics? One hand, 2, 3, 4. Not so many.
Yep.
Or are you just lazy? I don't think so. I think you are intelligent people. So, in a sense, I think it's a good example. So, how to know whether you are successful or not?
Very good question. Jani.
That was a very good point. Accountability, everything starts from accountability. Even though that we are talking about soft side, it doesn't mean that we don't have metrics and data. And all the decisions, at least in our company, Sales Communications does, is based on data. If we don't have data, we have actions. If we have actions, we will have data because, you know, we do something, we produce something, and then we have the data, and then we can work and ask ourselves a question, what number should move on what direction in what period of time, and then we have the metrics in place. But we still need to have those soft side. Actually, what we did, like 1.5 years ago, we went to forest for a 25 kilometers hike, and then we were sitting, all the 10 people of us in a fireplace, and I asked everybody a question. If you could choose, what kind of a company would you love to work for? And from that 1.5 years ago started journey, we created the company culture. And we put that company culture, that was a version 1.0 because it's evolving and we constantly try to change that. And we use that as a tool, saying to everybody that this is our culture, these are the values, the methods, the beliefs that this company stands for. And first, when we are hiring people, we are saying, look at this. Is this your company you want to work for? Because in the fast-moving technology world, over 7,000 marketing tools to choose for, there is no people who actually know it all. You don't have, you have old knowledge available a lot with the cheaper price.
And today we had a lot of new knowledge.
Exactly.
Buffet, but so, which one to choose?
Because you have to look for good people who can actually be coachability, that they have coachability as a one thing. They are curious, they want to learn more, but they need to feel safe. So that's why we created so that it's open to everybody to read, it's open to everybody to comment, and we will try to make it constantly better and see that is this the company that you want to work for?
Yeah, that's a good question to ask every now and then from yourself too. Am I in the fitting place, and am I the person to fit into this guy? Going back to growth, which, like I explained, for Finland is the key word in order to facilitate the change for the future. Growth comes out of sales. We have a lot of sales professionals here attending this seminar. What do you guys see? Is the technology going to solve the issue or help a lot in the issue of sales? Or is cold calling, snail mail the old tricks? Are they dead? Or are there any of the old tricks available, like you mentioned, that would be valid still? Or is it just that we just have to use the apps and choose the right ones in order to succeed?
If I continue on that, cold calling is dead. And there is no single number that you can prove otherwise. Prove me wrong. But what is not dead, and I think the way we should move, is to understanding the whole funnel. And when we are talking about digital environment, by the way, this is not for the companies who do not want to grow, because when you are investing sales and marketing, this tends to happen a customer which you need to serve, and then the circle goes around and round and round and round. So what you need to be understanding that what price your attention is, how much leads you can get on that digital channel, how many deals, and what's the value and price of that, and understand and numbers. What is the customer lifetime value? How many years you have your customer? Can you extend that? How much money and revenue and profit that customer will give you? And see, are you playing the game so that the marketing is actually investment? We live in the world where marketing is not investment. You don't put that on the balance sheet, even mentally. But in the digital ecosystem, what you can do is you can think about marketing and sales as an asset. When you are producing content, create value, you end up in a world where you have a library of content which stays there, and people are searching for answers in Google, coming to your website, converting into the leads, where you can start actually nurture them, and then you have the metrics right, so you know what is the ROI of that everything. But I think that us marketers and sales guys need to be focusing more what's on a head of CFO's head, and understand that if we put $1 there or euro there, how many euros we will get back? And look at the number and see, do we have the right number for our customer lifetime value that we are investing on that whole wheel that we are running in sales and marketing?
Sean and Jarkko, what's your take on the means and techniques of sales in the future in order to facilitate growth?
Okay, well, I'm not a sort of sales expert at all, so I will certainly defer to the to the expert. I mean, all I'd say is from a research point of view, because I spent half of my life as a researcher, this issue of the customer value equation is something that companies are talking about constantly, and so that issue of what's in it for me from the point of view of the customer is an ever more intrinsic point, which very often has been answered with silence, effectively, from companies. So whether it be consumers or individuals looking at brands from the point of view of things like the social good that they produce, and there's a lot of talk now about companies alongside their annual reports, for instance, talking about return to shareholders and dividends, also putting together social impact reports to say what is the absolute clear and provable impact on our local society, local communities in terms of us being here, and then publishing that is a very visible, literally a visible way of proving what goes behind the why, which is easy to say, but what put some actual sort of facts and figures behind it, I think is a fascinating area, along with things like companies setting up alternative boards to sit alongside if you like, the normal board, advisory boards, which will advise on what sort of things they think the company could and should be doing that's of relevance to the brand, to the company itself, and to that local society. That will improve the customer value equation in that particular instance.
How about you, Jarkko?
Well, this might not be the most popular opinion about this subject, but I have to remind you that what Jani said about the metrics, he's dead right. They are very important when you are making, because sales is a small part of marketing, and you have to lead it by numbers, of course. But to modern sales, it's also needed that you need the same basic sales skills that everyone has gone through, because when you are encountering the customer, you have to remember that we are so limited in time that we don't meet a lot of people. So when you are meeting a customer, you have to know your stuff. You have to know how to proceed with the conversation and so on. It's a bit dull, but it's still necessary. And of course, modern sales guy should also know how to create content, how to challenge your customer, how to make all the information customer has already got somewhere, how to make it as a real insight for the customer. So you have to know a lot to make customer valuable propositions, So customer value is formed from small parts, and you have to conquer them all. And for being in digital channels, your digital presence, you should always aim to be helping, so that all the discussions you are going through with the customers, you already have founded mutual trust within the customer from some other channel than the cold calling or something else. You can still call the customer, but you have had to make that trust some other channel. So in a sense, that's the basic recipe. But of course, we now have great technology. We have automation tools which can save your time. You can track customers' interactions. You can have the bot answer your questions while you are away, and so on. But they are not making poor, lousy sales reps better. They are just saving time. So having automation tools and such important part of modern sales work, but it can only fasten your work, not make you a better salesman. So keep up with those basics as well, and then add some automation to your workflow.
Fantastic. I'd like to give the floor for your questions to the panel. Now it's an exceptional opportunity to exploit and pick the minds of these three experts. Is there anyone who would like to ask a direct question from these guys? Leaving it to social media, or at the networking hour waiting for us? Okay, then I'll ask the last final round in order to keep up the schedule. It was very well put, Jarkko, from you to remind us from helping the customer. And Jani earlier reminded that it's important to focus on delighting the customer, not just trying to reach for everyone, and building the trust, which is indeed where we started. What would you give to these guys as a takeaway for the future? Let's say for tomorrow, what should these guys do tomorrow as a first thing after the cup of coffee, in order to not just be entertained and delighted here at DigiArena Helsinki, but also to have a little nudge into changing things for the better within the organization and themselves? Jani.
Well, customer service people tend to be really good serving the customer. And I would put those people more in charge of sales, so that in this modern way of how do we interact with content, we educate before we contact to the company. Probably if somebody calls to your company or fills a form and say, I want to be contacted by your sales, you're the last chance. Nobody else didn't serve that question. And the old school sales methods where you try to get the meeting or you try to get your metrics right, which are probably old school, so they are not working. So what I would do, I would take from your customer service the best customer service reps and stop measuring the time that you are spending with the customers and try to make that more efficient, because that's very, very bad customer service. And teach them basic sales skills, because then you end up in a situation where suddenly all the interactions, all the human interactions with the company are delightful, are happy, and basically customer servers are, in their DNA is that how can I make you better? How can I help you? So I think that's a good kind of a nugget to take away from
How
from
about
here.
you, Sean? What's the gift that you want to give to these?
Well, so just briefly taking that point forward, I totally agree with you. A classic example, you hear this around the world, in grocers, supermarkets and hypermarkets, the people who are paid the least are those people who wander the aisles, the corridors of the supermarkets, putting numbers on shelves or whatever, or restacking them. If companies were to train those people properly, support them, and if those people were then able to talk with and engage with customers all the time, because they are the only people, apart from the checkout people, if there's still a real person there that customers actually deal with, then the popularity of that store, due to the shopping experience being made easier and more fulfilling, would go through the roof. And yet it's amazing how virtually nobody does that. And it's the most obvious thing to do. It's the totally correct thing to do. It stuns me how no one does it. But on my side, I'd say certainly in terms of the trustworthy thing, it's this issue of not just trust, but being trustworthy. And that's all about, as you were saying earlier on, all about leadership, all about ensuring it does go right through the company. It's not a marketing thing, it's a business-wide thing, from the hand of production to the hand of the consumer.
Lovely way of putting it. Jarkko, you get the last word of this panel.
Yeah, great.
What's the key takeaway?
Well,
for these
key
people?
takeaway would be that if you have been building your digital footprint already, keep doing on that. Make sure that you have trustworthy, valuable information around so that customers can find you. And if you haven't done anything like that, start doing it. Start tomorrow and continue doing it. Because the sad part is it's easier for how long have you been doing it. And it takes only minutes to start. And for the last final wisdom, I have to say that you have to remember that even the greatest expert loses to mediocre one if only the latter one leaves out the valuable trace to be found.
Okay, so we're not entirely ditching the technology. I was a bit disappointed. I was fearing you guys would be disappointed because this is called DigiArena Helsinki. And today I've noticed from Twitter that in many other halls also the human touch, the emotion part has been an issue. I don't know whether it's a backlash or is it a complementary thing to all that the new technologies can make us to do and benefit from. But that is the final takeaway from this panel.
I was telling about Pope in my 10 Commandments of Modern Marketing. So
I kind of noticed there was even a touch of religion, which is really, really rare here in Finland. But probably it's a sign of the times. I hope that you enjoyed this. I would like us to thank with very, very warm applause both Sean Pillot de Cheneceyn, Jani Aaltonen and Jarkko Kurvinen. We're really looking forward to the new books of you guys. Thank you.
Thanks.
Oli muuten hyvä setti. Mahtavia tyyppejä. Se on kiva, kun pääsee fiksu yleisö eteen, juttelee fiksuja, vielä fiksumpia ihmisten kanssa itse. Terveisiä vaan äitille, kavereille ja muille. Eikä me lähdetään veke. Jengi rupee bilettää. Mennään eteenpäin.